Hi everybody, this is Brooke with Conversations with Brooke. So today I want to talk about how children are turned against their parents in different environments. And partially I'm bringing this up because of some recent events that have happened, but specifically I'm going to talk about my experience with it and the amount of times that I was pitted against my parents. So when you join certain organizations, it's a natural thing to push your children to be involved in the church, and in damaging ones, they become very tied into obviously all the beliefs, which is what you're bringing them for. You're bringing them to get love and get a knowledge of God and faith and everything that you find in this group that you find beautiful and loving and heartfelt and all of that kind of stuff. What happens in damaging ones is they leverage your relationship with your children so that they can use it against you. And that happened in ours all the time. Specifically, and I remember as a teenager, there was different events where we were slowly put in a position to confront my parents. And that was me. That was me and all my siblings, really. There was, if my parents were doing something that was considered not aligned with what they should be doing, and we became like little soldiers for the leaders in a lot of different ways, and everybody's children did. So it started like we would have these times where we would sit around in groups and we would talk about something going on. My dad would get in fights with the minister a lot. And every time my dad got into a fight with the minister, everybody was trained to talk him down. So it becomes this like everybody's self-correcting everything, but it prevents you from actually questioning the bullshit that's actually going on behind the scenes. It prevents you from asking the real questions about what the group is doing, why the group is doing it, because you've given away all this absolute power to the people who are leading the organization, whether they're ministers, pastors, whatever. So anytime anybody would question anything, we all became the dogs that would calm them down or shut them up. So we did it in the sense that, so it became this thing, so my dad would get in fights and then we would get yelled at, are you really going to let your dad talk to her that way? So then it became this thing where we would come down so hard on my dad that it would shut my dad up. And that's what they do. And this is why people don't leave groups. People don't leave these groups because they get into this place that if they leave, these groups have turned their children against them. So their kids become their dogs fighting their battles for them. They become their soldiers, to keep everything going. And from a psychological perspective, like one thing that, one thing about any type of system, and a system could be a family within a house, it could just be two parents and some children, it could be one parent and children, it could be, but you create a little ecosystem that you have when you have a family together. And those, that can be larger, it can be just your family unit, it can be in a group, it can be this, and it grows out from there. But regardless of the size, that becomes an ecosystem. So one of the things that happens is when you have an ecosystem, even if it's dysfunctional, and that can mean fighting, that can mean all kinds of dysfunction. It could be abuse, it could be all kinds of stuff. As soon as somebody steps out of that circle and stops the cycle that's continuing, that person is going to be attacked by the people in the circle, because the people within are saying, why are you doing that? Why would you do that? Why would you stop? We have this going on, and it may be a dysfunctional circle, but it's our circle, and you stepping out is not okay. And an example of that is like when I got out with my children, I was working really hard. I was going to therapy. One of the really dysfunctional things I did is I yelled at my children a lot. And it was not okay. But it was what I was raised with. I didn't really know how to get into something that was more beneficial. So I started going to therapy, and I realized one day that I had to stop yelling at my kids. I realized how damaging it was that I was, and I mean, bad yelling. We're not talking about just raising your voice. I mean, I was screaming and saying very hurtful, harmful things. So I decide I'm not going to yell at my kids one day. And that's it. Like, that behavior is done, and it's not going to happen anymore. And I'm going to, and it's me and my two children, my son and my daughter. They were both teenagers at the time. And they flipped out. You would think that the automatic reaction is like, oh my gosh, she finally stopped yelling. But what happens is because somebody's stepping outside of the normal, everybody, it kicks a hornet's nest. And it throws off this ecosystem that you've created, no matter how dysfunctional the ecosystem is. So all of a sudden I'm not yelling anymore, and my kids get really insecure because I'm all of a sudden changing in a way. Now, it got more volatile in my house. Everything just blew up and got worse immediately. And it was like, which made it more difficult to stop, which made it even more difficult because that was my go-to. My go-to was to yell when things got bad. So in these larger institutions, when somebody steps out of line and they've created this ecosystem where the children are more, and when I'm saying children, I'm talking about adult children too. I mean, even as adults, we were always coming down really hard on my parents if there was anything that ever happened. I remember when my parents had sent a letter. My parents sent a letter saying they were stepping back from things. Every one of their kids, I think every single, and they sent it to everybody, and every single one of us attacked them for it. And that's why people don't leave. And that's why people never speak up. And that's why people don't talk about how dysfunctional it is. And that's why I have this channel. And that's why I interview people. And it's not okay. It's not okay to shame people. It's not okay to control people. It's not okay to turn people's children against them. It's not okay to manipulate. It's not okay to take their money. It's not okay, to make them serve you. It's not okay to do all of this. And it's not okay to do it in the name of God. Those are not, none of that is God. So I'm sharing this video, and I hope it reaches a few people. And when somebody is if you're struggling to get out of an environment, there's a reason. There's a lot of psychology behind why that stuff happens. There's a lot of, there's a dynamic that follows through, and it pretty much happens every time. And there's threats of legal stuff and threats of all kinds of stuff. And it's walking through a very difficult storm. And this is why people have so much difficulty in these situations, because once you're in one, it's not as simple to get out. Because if you've really ingrained yourself in a community, there's a lot of blowback that's emotional and heartbreaking. But there is another side to it. I swear to you. If you could see the other side after you've, after you've kicked the hornet's nest and things begin to come back together and people see it from another view, and it takes time and it takes work. So I hope you guys take this to heart, and I hope this means something, and have a great day.